Okay, thank you for having me on your program. My name is Andrew Holder, and I am the Fire Prevention Officer of the Guyana Fire Service. What does that mean? It simply means that I am in charge of all fire prevention, education, awareness that takes place within the 83,000 square miles of Guyana. The Guyana Fire Service, what can I say about the Guyana Fire Service? Prior to 1957, there was no fire service. Firefighting responsibilities were entrusted in the Guyana Police Force. There you had a section of the police force being mandated to carry out firefighting duties. The Great Fire of 1956-57, which swept through our commercial sector, resulted in a very massive inquiry. That inquiry saw British fire experts coming down to Guyana and trying to establish a fact-finding mission as to why this fire was allowed to ravage so severely. And coming out of that investigation, it was evident that there was no professional firefighting body. As I mentioned earlier, policemen were conducting firefighting responsibilities. And the powers that be at that time, it was recommended to them that, hey, this can no longer be. We need to have trained professional firefighters with clear, separate, and distinct responsibilities from the Guyana Police Force. And as of such, the Guyana Fire Service was birthed. With the very first fire chief being a guy from England, Mr. Atkinson, I think it was, and then we move on and progressed from there on. Today, the Guyana Fire Service boasts almost 17 firefighting locations within our country, stretching throughout the entire Guyana. 17 locations.
Right. Looking at your connection with the United Kingdom, I think some time ago you had some tenders come in as well. Are you still getting assistance and support from the UK?
Yes, we are. Most of our firefighting tenders emanates from the UK. And at this point, I must also state that we have training initiatives with the UK. I myself returned from an extensive fire engineering training in Bristol sometime last year. We had 6 fire officers underwent training in England.
Looking at this time after training, we look at the type of fires that affect Guyana so much. Of recent, you've had quite a number of fires springing up. I know most of them are electrical. And what really has been happening in this scenario, if I may ask?
Most fires that we experience or we respond to in Guyana are house fires, household fires. While a sizable amount sprung from electrical origin, the majority had to do with direct human causation, be it children being left alone playing with matches, be it adults negligent or malicious setting to building. People use the setting of fire to settle domestic disputes and so forth. In the fire service, we have a saying in which we say firefighting starts where fire prevention fails. We try to posit fire prevention education always in the hope that our citizenry would grab hold of this knowledge, and that would effect some amount of behavioral changes amongst them. As it relates to the electrical fires, quite a lot of our homes here in Guyana were built during the British era, and wooden buildings. And what we find happening, someone might have inherited a home from their grandfather or grandmother some years ago. And back in those days, they didn't have so much electrical luxuries, such as the washing machine and microwave and electric kettle and so forth. So probably the housing was wired or built to accommodate probably a little transistor radio, a radiogram, who knows, probably a fan. And after acquiring those homes, the new occupants did not see it fit to upgrade their electrical aspect of the home. So what you find happening, they brought in a refrigerator, brought in an electrical oven or a stove. It's a tropical country, so we're going to put in an air condition now, and with no consideration for improving these electrical aspects of our homes. So most of the fires electrical fires that occur in Guyana occurs as a result of overloading electrical circuits, because it is a fact that electricity generates heat.
Yeah.
And after constantly overloading that circuit, the heat builds up, and that causes a breakdown in the electrical insulation, and from there a fire gets started.
Right.
And we see it happening ever so often.
Let's look at some of the wiring. Is there a lot of what you call inferior wiring also being sold, plugs, etc., that are counterfeit? How do you cope with that? Because that again is also, I think, can cause a lot of electrical fires around the place.
We can only advise homeowners and even contractors to source the correct standard of wiring. There is an electrical code that they have to comply with by the way. To source proper wiring, proper electrical installation equipment and tools to do the job. There is the Guyana National Bureau of Standard that is the parent body to oversee the standards of all these electrical fittings that enters Guyana. But we are a third world country, we are a developing country. Things slip through the noose, and everybody goes for the cheapest source of purchase these days. While that might save you a few bucks, it can cause you some severe pain in the long run. So we advise people, go to the reputable agencies, go to the established stores that we know have these proper equipment, and use those in your homes.
On the other side now, let's talk about training and how effective is that being done at the moment into schools, as well as new recruits coming in. How is that effective?
Now, as it relates to schools, the month of October is designated every year as Fire Prevention Month. During that month, we in the Guyana Fire Service intensifies our efforts at spreading the gospel of fire prevention around, and we start with schools. Business places, companies, factories, places of public entertainment also call on us to share our knowledge, but during that period we focus primarily on schools. During this time, you would see us conducting lectures to school, fire drills, evacuation drills, and so forth. That is not to say that only that period we conduct such activity. We are an all-round department, the fire prevention department. As it relates to recruit training, just about a month ago, a batch of 45 recruits completed training at our brand new state-of-the-art training facility in Lenora. That recruitment training goes for 3 months, and during that 3 months, all the disciplines of firefighting are instilled in these young men and women. So on completion of that training, they are placed into the field of work, and mind you, it's a rigorous 3 months, right? They're placed into the field of work in different departments, and we find them excelling very well.
Right. I mean, is there room? Are they going to be employed after training? They offered employment?
Once you're accepted after training, as long as you complete the training, there is 100% guarantee you're employed.
Right. That sounds good. Now let's move away on another side now. Okay, but let's look at the media. How much do you use the media to bring about the awareness as well?
Yes, quite a lot, and I must say that we're having quite a lot of support from the media in terms of getting our fire prevention education across. There's still room for improvement, but we work together.
Finally, before I go, before I take this to the other end, if one wants to join or become a member of the Guyana Fire Service, how do they go about that?
There is first and foremost an age and physical requirement. Our cutoff point, I think it's 35 years. You cannot be older than 35. All of your physical faculties must be intact, because this is a physically demanding job. You write an application, address it to the fire chief, ensure that a contact number is affixed to that application, and all your necessary qualifications, be it technical, vocational, educational. When that selection panel is ready, you will be called to firstly do a test, a written test, basic test. Upon being successful at that, you called for an interview. Upon being successful at the interview, the next stage is to undergo medical examination. Upon being successful at that medical examination, the interview and the test, you are selected for training.
Now, as I said, finally, I'm saying finally again, because something else came up. How about if you'd like to be contacted, or you like assistance from overseas-based Guyanese nationals over there who are willing to or can support and assist the Guyana Fire Police, or Guyana Fire Service, part of that, would you like to send an appeal to them? What would you say?
This is Guyana. This is our home. Mainly for those residing overseas. If you would like to assist us in any way possible, assist the fire department in any way possible, I'm sure it is welcome. There's so much more that we can do to develop not only Guyana but the fire department, in terms of gears, in terms of equipment, in terms of PPE, that's protective equipment, in terms of even training for our staff members. I am sure that my fire chief will welcome that with an open arm. We can be contacted on our telephone numbers. That's Office of the Chief Fire Officer at 592-226-4588. I can be contacted at 592-226-5988. That's our numbers here at the Guyana Fire Service.
Is there an email address?
My email address is lewiilou, that's louislou @yahoo.com. I can be reached at that number, at that email address.
Mr. Hall, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and success to the Guyana Fire Service, and look forward to lots of support from everyone out there who's looking.
Thank you very much for taking us to London.